Here I am in northeast Winnipeg on the corner of Edgar and McIvor. And situated right here on this corner is a small and humble house. I think there are people who drive past this house every day without realizing it, without understanding what exactly is inside. But if you stop and take a look, you'll see that there are actually many stories within this house. As you think back on this crazy year of 2020, I want to ask you, what are some of the stories that come to mind? For us here at McIvor Church, we look back on this year and we see many ways that God has shown up and worked in powerful ways. Even amidst all the complexities, we've seen His presence, we've seen His provision, we've seen His power show up in so many stories. And so we want to share some of those stories with you now.
It might be hard to believe, but if you can remember, we actually began this year with a focus on an event called Finder's Feast. Here we would emphasize relationships and especially the community that develops around the table. We were seeing God at work in powerful ways, but we couldn't have imagined the massive changes that were coming in March. By early March, the COVID-19 crisis had reached our doorstep, causing us to close our doors and consider creative ways that we could continue to be the church in this very different season. One early response was for our services to move online. We started a McIvor Church YouTube channel to host weekly engagement with our worship gatherings. There was a steep learning curve involved in this, but we've grown together, and today we have about 150 videos totaling 14,000 views. We're also aware of those who have limited technological access, but we still value these people as part of our community. And so a printed newsletter was created and distributed weekly to dozens of people, helping them to feel connected within the life of our church. We saw our community respond in many generous ways to the increased needs of this season. New volunteers came forward to be able to continue our Manitoba Harvest Food Bank. Money and food donations continued to come in, helping us to provide 600 packages of food to our neighbors throughout this year. We also focused our giving on the community of 188 Church in downtown Winnipeg. We were able to give a check of $5,000 and many personal supplies to support their essential ministry in our city's core. And we saw many people partnering with our missionaries who are stationed here in Winnipeg, in Canada, and around the world. Each one of them has been sharing God's love in the midst of deep needs and hardships in this year. As we were able, we found safe ways to practice community. This past summer, we hosted the Step Outside gathering in our parking lot to share our own stories and worship God together. And even while apart, we have continued to remember that our lives are ultimately joined together in Jesus. This fall, we were able to resume live gatherings, but restarting would not be without a great deal of pivoting in our planning and in our praying.
Expose any lies that we are believing of you or of ourselves, to confess these and to repent. I ask, Father, that you would hear our prayer, that you would forgive our sins, and that you would heal our land.
As we applied great care and caution to gather together again, we dared to dream of the kind of church that God was calling us to be. Even with masks and distancing, and without handshakes and singing, we found meaningful ways to come together in worship. Throughout this time of being scattered and having to endure these seesaw seasons, many have committed to caring for our physical space, believing that God is not done using it as a connecting point for our neighborhood. Because of your generosity, we were able to replace the ceiling over top of our church foyer, a space that serves as a tangible experience of welcome to our community. We also partnered with the Razorback before and after school care program that occupies our basement to build a fence and playground for the dozens of kids who are in their program. And as you've already seen, this year a little library was created on the corner of our lot to serve our neighbors. During this last season, we've needed to pivot again to having our services back online, but our people have continued to show up in many initiatives of generosity. We've seen dozens of Advent and Christmas Eve packages that have been delivered to young families in the church. Dozens of gift bags were delivered to residents at Madison House, bringing practical and personal care from our church, as well as students at Maple Leaf School. And dozens of Christmas hampers were assembled to bring some special care during the Christmas season. It has been amazing to see so many ways that the generosity of God has been flowing in and through our church in this year.
So as we come to the end of this year of 2020, we are thanking God. We're thanking Him for the provision, the generosity He has shown in and through our community. We're thanking Him for the gifts that He's given to us. These are the people themselves who are a part of our community and finding new and creative ways to partner with God's mission. And we are thanking Him for the call that He has placed on our lives to make us a community that is gathered around this point of 200 McIvor Avenue, a community that is continuing to have our lives transformed and joining in the mission He's given to us. There's a powerful story that's continuing to be written here of generations joining Jesus in the renewal of all things. We want to thank you for being a part of that story of our church.